Hey, listen up. Yeah, we here and we locked in. Let's keep it going all the way to the top 10. We fear the turtles, so it's no other option. Fred and Ryan, just watch them. Let's take it to the max. It's the Shell and Tell. They come with all the facts. It's the Shell and Tell. Let's take it to the max. It's the Shell and Tell. They come with all the facts. It's the Shell and Tell.
What's up, Terp fans? Fred, Ryan, and Ahmed back with another episode of the ShellnTell podcast, episode 74, fellas. We're getting up there.
Yeah.
Close to 100. We're going to do something special for 100, I guess, right? We got to do something big for 100. Getting up pretty close. Yeah, in person, live show.
100 sounds about like spring game next year.
Could be. Quick math, I like it. Well, we got a lot to talk about on this week's show as the countdown continues. We're now 15 days away from kickoff 2022. Unreal that it's coming that fast. We'll start this week with a trip around practice and see how things are shaping up heading into the season.
Yeah, we'll continue our annual positional breakdowns, and this week we're going to highlight the defensive back room and specialists and pose the question if the special teams unit can actually be a strength for Maryland this season.
Yeah, it sure wasn't last year. And Ahmed gives us an update on the latest recruit buzz around both football and our hoop squad.
Yeah, man, a lot of exciting things to talk about this week. But before we start this week's show, today's episode is sponsored by Quick Stretch and Body Works. Quick Stretch and Body Works helps athletes with the performance and recovery periods both during and in the off seasons. The naturally formulated athletic performance and recovery lotion is an easy, effective way for athletes to prepare for skill training and workouts in full swing. Founded by Todd Smith, a former college athlete and head athletic trainer at 2 collegiate programs himself. Even some of the athletes at the University of Maryland are taking advantage of this product, including star linebacker Ruben Hippolyte II. Make sure you head over to quickstretchbodyworks.com and check it out today. That's quickstretchbodyworks.com. All right, fellas, before we get into Terps specific, we got to talk Big Ten conference news, big news surrounding the conference as a whole, as it was announced on Thursday that the Big Ten's reached a distribution agreement with CBS, Fox, NBC, and NBC Universal's Peacock on a 7-year deal worth up to $7.5 billion with a B billion dollars, man. That's insane.
That's great money as long as we're never playing on Peacock.
And I even noticed the deal is potentially could go up to $10 billion, which is pretty wild.
That's insane. I mean, when you look at this thing, it's projected to eventually distribute $80 million to $100 million per year to each of the 16 members once you include USC and UCLA in the mix. According to USA Today, the league distributed $54.3 million to most of its members during the most recent fiscal year in 1920, not impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, whatever. So that's a huge uptick for each one of these schools, and just goes to prove that the Big Ten, man, is the cream of the crop right now.
Yeah, Big Ten did what they needed to do. They got the schools in place, the media markets in place to get this deal done. And to me, I think that's going to be the end of expansion for a while, because why do you need it? I mean, the escalation clauses help to pay for if you want to do it, but you really don't need to at this point because you already got the fish. You already caught the money.
I was going to say it's definitely possible that, expansion maybe, kind of on hold right now. But at the end of the day, I think it kind of just proves that, Big Ten's kind of at the forefront and kind of the trendsetter in this new media wave and kind of new wave of college football. So it's been pretty remarkable to see.
Well, that was going to be my question with this. Do you think this impacts Notre Dame's decision to join the conference in any way? Because, I mean, you figure NBC has had exclusive broadcasts to Notre Dame home games since 1991, right? And this is obviously a huge uptick per year. Could this have been the final piece that Notre Dame needed to make that decision?
Yeah, it kind of seems like, I mean, the thing is with Notre Dame is Notre Dame will always go at their own pace. So I think it makes sense that, eventually it feels like Notre Dame will probably be the most realistic next domino to fall for the Big Ten. But we'll see. I mean, that definitely, kind of caught my eye as well, when obviously with that long time affiliation between the university and network, it just kind of feels inevitable. And this may be kind of that next step. Now, when it happens, that who knows the answer to that question other than Notre Dame officials?
It was just such great timing for your media deal to expire at the same time as this expansion's taking over, the same time you're adding teams. I mean, the SEC was down there adding Texas and Oklahoma too, but they're locked up on their media deal for another 8 years. So like they really, unless they just bang on the table and try to get them to like up it in the middle of a contract, they don't have a leg to stand on. The Big Ten could take their entertainment anywhere they wanted to, and it helped a lot.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Didn't the SEC just restructure their deal now with ESPN? Is that right?
I think they're locked into ESPN and ABC till like 2032 or something crazy.
Okay, and that's been in place. That wasn't something new.
I think they're attempting to redo it because of what was just seen.
Okay.
Is what at least how I understood it, because their numbers are nowhere near where we're looking at right now. I don't think they would have settled to what they're currently getting paid at this moment.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's fair, and obviously, a lot of these schools. I think it's all even the Pac-12 with the new media rights. They're kind of scrambling and kind of feel like that's kind of a threat to them. So I think a lot of these other networks that aren't involved with the Big Ten deals, I think they'll kindly try and reevaluate and reestablish a fair market value.
Now, on a week-to-week basis, do you guys think this has any kind of impact or change anything with game time scheduling? Do you see more night games in the future potentially for the Terps, or is it still going to be basically the same type of structure?
I think it could be, I think and it's possible. I mean, is Maryland going to have, Friday night games? Is that going to be something that's more common throughout the Big Ten now? And, be able to own the CBS at a 7:30, 8 p.m. slot. And I think that's kind of an intriguing aspect as well. So it definitely improves the opportunity for visibility.
How do you feel about that, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as we talked about before, the biggest thing is that there's going to be relevant games for the Terps at night always. There's going to be teams playing on the West Coast that matter for Big Ten standings. There's going to be 7:30 games all across probably 2 or 3 channels a night that you can pick which Big Ten game you want to watch. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to, for us, because we are the East Coast team, I feel like it's going to be very similar to the Ravens, where even though they're one of the top shows in the NFL, they want to put Lamar Jackson in primetime, they're still on the East Coast. So they still get stuck with a bunch of early games because they're on the East Coast, and you can't make LA play at 9 a.m. their time and make it work. So we're still going to see more of the 3:30 and noon games than our fair share probably would be. But sure, we'll get a few more primetime games in there.
Well, you talk about the national media, right? And that's something that's kind of been a buzz around the Terps lately, has been the national media attention, really, that this team's getting across the country, mainly centered around Talia and the offensive firepower this team has. It's got me super excited for this year. I know we're kind of homers at heart, you and I, Ryan, anyway. And we tend to be a little bit more optimistic than the average fan, right? But I haven't seen this kind of national hype around a team
since the day
in
before
a very
Iowa.
Long time. Well, yeah, I guess that's true. Up until the game, but I'm saying heading into a season, it's got everybody's attention, man. This team's set to be an exciting team.
Yeah, I think just kind of with the offensive firepower that's coming back, and obviously with Talia and all the wide receivers, all 5 offensive linemen coming back, and I think even the running back room, they're kind of young, but I think they do a really good job complementing each other. Yeah, I mean it's definitely reason to be optimistic and kind of see with heading into year 4 why there's so much optimism and heightened expectations around this team going into the season.
Well, I know in his recent press conference, you had a chance to talk to Locks, and you actually asked him a question about what's the key to success for this team. And he talked about the depth being the key to this team, but he brought up some interesting names.
We've created depth at all these positions, and so it's always going to be competition, and that's how we wanted to be around here. We really believe that, you have great competition, it brings out the best in our players. And that's one of the things through recruiting. We've been able to create the necessary depth that allows that competition to happen. And we see it in the running back room. We see it in the receiver room. We've got some talented players there from a tight end standpoint, guys like CJ Dupree and Corey Dyches, and you throw LaRon Husbands in there and been really pleased with, his development. I thought from a inside linebacker position, has some really good depth there. And so there's been great competition with those guys. And, up front, we rotate a bunch of players. So we always want to keep healthy guys on the field. And we've created pretty good depth in the front seven. So that competition is something that's ongoing. It's something that's really made us a better team.
Talking about that depth, and I thought he brought up a couple key points in this thing. Running back depth, I think you and we'd all kind of talked a little bit about that, and there's a lot of depth there. A lot of it's young depth, right? A lot of it's unproven depth. It's hopeful depth, but there's a ton of it there. The tight end room, we had talked about CJ Dupree, we talked about Corey Dyches, Chig Okonkwo, even talked about Weston Wolf, but a guy that Loxley mentioned here that we hadn't really heard a whole lot about and didn't know what his impact was going to be this year. LaRon Husbands, what have you been seeing from him in practice? Anything good?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy, he kind of balances as a receiving and tight or blocking tight end and kind of can do a little bit of both. Again, he missed all of last year. He had 2 surgeries, one of them being a hip surgery. So now it's just that first year where he's kind of, getting his feet wet a little bit more, and he's able to kind of acclimate himself to the, just day to day and obviously the technique under my tight end coach, Mike Miller. So I think it is kind of intriguing, but, I think obviously with Dyche just kind of being that alpha dog in the room, and I think CJ Dupree is going to be that second tight end a lot. Wouldn't surprise me if we do see both Weston Wolf and LaRon Husbands. I think the two of them will probably be battling for that third tight end spot, but we'll see. I mean, obviously with so many receiving threats, does Weston Wolf, does he still command the same amount of snaps? So it might be a package deal type of situation where Husband sees the field in some packages, Wolf sees it and others to kind of alleviate Dupree and Dyches a little bit more. So definitely, I think there's some quality depth behind Dyches, who I think is going to be a really big playmaker for this offense this year.
This reminds me of the spring game podcast where we played the game with Ellis, the coach speak or real talk.
Right.
Is this real talk? Is this like the guy that's going to be, competing for number 3? Or is this just like you said, somebody coming back from injury, needed a little rah-rah, he's working hard, Locks wanted to give him his due and give him a little shout out, give him a pep talk, kind of thing on the side. We'll never know. But it was very interesting to hear that name first. It definitely caught my eye. Also, it was really good to hear Loxley saying nice things about the inside linebacker group because, that was one of the worries we had was just like, yeah, like you said, we have plenty of potential. There's guys we've been excited about there, but we just really haven't seen them all put it together. So it is nice to hear that because we really haven't heard a bunch of promotion on that side of the ball.
Well, a couple of guys that don't really need a whole lot of rah-rah hyping up because their names kind of speak for themselves. Dante Demas, Jayshon Jones, both coming back from major injuries. How have they looked at practice coming back? Has things been good?
Yeah, they this practice this past week they were able to kind of work on some of those deep routes and Demas looked good. Obviously, both of them, both Demas and Jayshon Jones, they both look good. They're both still wearing the knee brace. A couple others like Leon Houghton, Ramon Brown, but those are more precautionary. I mean, again, I think both of them. Jayshon Jones, I definitely expect back. Full strength week 1. I think Demas is still trending that way. They're still being cautious with them, but it sounds like we'll see him. How much we see him week 1, I think that's kind of to be determined, especially against Buffalo. You go 3-4 touchdowns. Do you just kind of help him? Get the game reps and then say, okay, like just relax or get ready a little bit more. But so far so good.
They're not being that cautious as we all saw the Maryland clip of Dante throwing down a dunk from the
My heart
from the
skipped a
free
beat.
throw line at Locks' basketball court. I was like, where is his knee brace? Why is he playing basketball? What's going on here? I couldn't believe that happened or that they would promote that happening.
Yeah, my heart skipped a beat. I mean, I went immediately into the Thunderdome. Shout out to the Thunderdome in our chat room, man, to see. And of course, Dewey was in there already like, wait a minute, why is this guy not wrapped in bubble wrap? What are we doing
he should
here?
be cryogenically frozen until game time.
Exactly. No, it's good. I have fears, obviously. I mean, we went through Terrell Suggs years ago, tearing his Achilles, playing basketball like that. So, I mean, look, They're human beings. They're going to be,
They gotta have fun.
They're going to have fun. They're going to do things. It's just, God, I don't want to see it. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Like, don't post it. I don't need to see it.
I mean, just them posting practice videos where they were throwing like the big workout balls at them while they caught pass. I was like, why are you throwing balls at Jashwan Jones' legs? Are you out of your mind? Chill out, guys.
Yeah. But, we had talked a little bit about the wide receiver core prior to going live, Ahmed, and another surprising name you had mentioned just kind of briefly, and I wanted to bring it up on the show because it caught me off guard. Specific name lining up at wide receiver, a guy out of St. Francis, but not a guy that we would normally think of at wide receiver. John Griffith lining up at wide receiver. What the hell is this about?
Yeah, so I saw him 2 weeks ago at practice. It was after practice, and I saw him just with the wide receivers with Coach Brewer, and that was kind of weird. I remember I said something, and no one else kind of acknowledged it, and I don't know if they were paying attention, honestly. And this past week, the roster has him at number 18, and I was like, that is number 17, and that is John Griffith. And I asked someone, and it's just I was told it's a strictly a can't move with Deshaun Jones with the miss, still. It sounds like, they're participating in the vast majority of workouts, which is kind of to help with the depth a little bit. And when the staff wants to stay cautious, Griffith kind of helps replenish depth a little bit more on, third, fourth strings and whatnot. But I think it's kind of interesting. I don't think I ever expected Griffith to kind of line up as an athlete like that. I do think that it's just kind of good for the quarterback room as a whole. I mean, obviously he was the guy that got there in January, and, once he moves back to quarterback full time, once the season starts, it just kind of gives them a dual threat kind of option. But he would be a backup guy still.
Yeah, you can't. It can't hurt getting a little bit more athleticism.
He would have to be wide receiver 11 at this point on this roster. They're so deep at wide receiver.
Yeah,
if he takes a snap at wide receiver, this season has gone really poorly.
Season has gone right in the tank, if that's the case. Either that or we've got a 60-0 lead, and let's hope for that. Yeah. But another thing that speaking of awkward and seeing things you didn't want to see, I'm sure you guys have both seen it. If you haven't, you're purposely avoiding it. The big Penn State sign on 95 from Maryland to Happy Valley. I know that this is kind of like an annual thing, but why does Maryland not outbid whatever they're paying for that billboard?
It's got to be a
just
Penn
as a
State
big
grad.
FU. It has to
be a Penn State grad that owns that billboard company. It has to be.
It's so frustrating.
And I mean, I think I saw it was Bo Braid's dad. I saw he commented on it, and Zaki Wheatley, his dad, had posted on Facebook. Want to say Tuesday or Wednesday night this week, and I remember seeing it, and I think Bo Braid's dad commented and was like, "Man, Locks is gonna throw a fit when he sees that," and it kind of made me chuckle. I thought it was kind of because honestly, I mean, that's just the typical James Franklin Penn State stuff to get under Loxley's skin. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I heard it was on the exit 53, I think, going into Baltimore City, and then I think I saw someone else say, they saw it on 295. So I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to look at it, from the perspective of it's an obnoxious thing that Penn State's doing, that's fine. I completely think it's obnoxious, but let's be honest. I mean, Baltimore, St. Francis, there's never been a kid from St. Francis to go to Baltimore. So you maybe could chalk it up to a poor investment on their part.
Yeah, I mean, we need some of these graffiti artists in Baltimore City. I'm calling
do your thing. That's a long way to climb up there, though.
Calling all tag artists, take care of it. Send me the bill later. All right,
load up a car of squeegee kids and say, "Hey, come with me. I'll pay you all $100 for the day."
Oh man.
I've seen all kinds of people making big deals about this, and then like whole articles written about what they've done and what players they've taken from Maryland. But then I didn't know enough about it, so I started digging into all these players' names, and I'm just not impressed. Yeah, they were top 5, top 10 recruits out of Maryland, but what have they turned into? They had a guy that transferred to Marshall after 3 years. They had a 5-star that they got drafted in the 7th round. That's literally one step above the minimum possible thing that can happen to a 5-star. Any 5-star that doesn't die before his 3rd year of eligibility can get a UDFA contract. So you got him a 7th round draft pick. Congratulations, Penn State. They got a hyped up defensive lineman that has 3 sacks in 4 years. Why do we care? Like Chop is probably the best one on that billboard right now.
That's where I was gonna go with this whole thing, because it was salt in the wound. It was a recent picture, obviously, because Chop was up there. That one stings. It's still a little sensitive, but I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about practice and whatnot, and obviously the big name. Speaking of St. Francis, the big name to come in and replace him this year potentially, Jason Barham. He was named a preseason freshman All-American. Is he gonna make me forget about Chop this year? How's he look?
Yeah, I mean, he's a stud. I think they kind of, when he came in and enrolled as a freshman, I think the biggest thing was, whether he plays inside and out. And I think that was kind of a question that wasn't like, oh, I don't know where he's projected. It's more like, he can kind of play inside, he can play outside. Where does he kind of fit? I mean, I think I definitely had high expectations for Chop when he signed with Maryland, and he kind of struggled just kind of generating pressure off the edge. And I know he struggled against Jalen Duncan in practice, but I think Jason Barham, I mean, every single person you ask, Brian Williams, Ruben Hippolyte, I think Dante Trader got asked the question as well, Darrell Nachami. I mean, they all talk about, this guy is essentially playing well above what you expect a freshman to play. And that's not even bringing up Caleb Wheatland, but I think Jason, I wrote it on the site earlier this week. It just kind of feels like it's just a matter of time until he becomes that full-time starter. And now I think that's big praise because, you obviously have Ruben Hippolyte who will play one side, and then Benaje Gote, Jeremy Sprague. And so I think, it kind of speaks volume to just how dominant Barham is, against the run, against the pass. I think he has great instincts, great speed, and has a great feel for the game. And it seems like it's kind of translated really well. And obviously he benefits from enrolling in January.
Talking my lingo. It's getting me excited.
Keep these guys fresh. I don't care. You got 4 starters for 3 positions, bro. Like go with that Eagles defense from a couple years ago where it didn't matter. We didn't have starters. We just had 7 dudes playing. Like it worked out for them. So I'll be happy if we can keep them fresh, and hopefully that means keep people not injured, because that's the key to our defense this year. Our starters can roll, but our depth is not quite where it needs to be on that side of the ball.
Yeah, so let's get into that, man. Continuing our annual positional breakdowns, we're going to talk this week about the defensive backs first. We'll start with the corner specifically, because obviously if you talk about depth being good on this team, if there's any areas of concern, it's cornerbacks, it's DBs. So how concerning is the depth to you, Ahmed, with this group?
Yeah, I think it's kind of intriguing because obviously I think when you look at the starters, you kind of know what you're getting, and I think there's a high ceiling with those guys. But then behind them, Lionel Whitaker and Perry Fisher, I think those are 2 guys. Chance Harley is another guy who kind of came in from Villanova as well. So it's just kind of unproven. But I think I remember talking to one person, kind of just about Perry Fisher because he enrolled in June, excuse me, and he was kind of asking, how's that transition been for him, because it was pretty instant after he got on campus. I think it was definitely within the week where he made that move from wide receiver to corner. But what I was told essentially is, he's a guy who's a former quarterback as well in high school, and just kind of having the IQ and the instinct as a quarterback to help that translate as a defensive back, knowing what the quarterback tendencies are, that kind of helps. And obviously he's a great guy. He has really long arms. That was something that I kind of liked about him as a wide receiver, but I think he has, natural speed as well. So I think he'll be leaned on. And obviously Corey Coley is a guy that, he enrolled last January, and I think he benefits from, playing week in, week out, NFL talent in the Big Ten. So I think that there's definitely some unproven talent. It'll be really interesting to see, if one of these guys goes down. Hopefully, God forbid, won't, any of these guys miss time. But this room will have to grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah, this is a room where you can't afford to have many injuries at all.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got a couple of studs. I think Tareeb Still and Jacorian Bennett both can be great boundary corners for this team. I think the biggest question mark for the starting corners, who plays that nickel role? Who steps up and fills that spot? Anybody in the front seat you think for that?
I think it could be Tareeb Still, and I think Isaiah Hazel. I know we have him as a safety, and that's kind of where he is as a backup right now. But I think he could also kind of fill that role. But I think Still, when you had Still, Banks, Bennett all healthy, I think Still just his frame. I think that kind of made him a nickel corner, and also he did a really good job kind of generating pressure. And remember in conference play last year, they used him to help blitz to help generate some additional pressure off the edge. So I think I think that's kind of the guy I have in mind right now.
So
Yeah,
you see, I was gonna say, so you see Bennett and Banks playing the boundary and still sliding into the slot in a nickel formation.
Yeah, Banks
Okay.
Banks was a big loss for that unit last year. I mean, I think
Yeah.
he was a guy even when he signed in high school. I mean, I remember he was pretty unknown commodity when he got offered and then he signed. But it was like every single time he got to campus, you just heard like, dude, this guy's like better. He's better than I thought the last time I worked out with him, or he's better than he was last month in practice. Like he's a dog, honestly, and I think he's the guy that he'll probably, as long as he stays healthy, I think he's a guy that will definitely become a bigger name in the Big Ten. So I've been a big fan of him. I think he plays real physical. I think he's in line for a big season.
Yeah, still Sack at West Virginia is in the opening credits for ShellnTell. As that corner blitz took care of that quarterback, no problem.
That's right.
Right.
You already mentioned the names, but I just want to talk a little bit deeper. I mean, Corey Coley, it's a big boy, 6'2", 180 playing corner. And like you said, he played an unfortunate amount of football last year with all the injuries that we had. He played 11 out of 13 games, had multiple starts, and he stepped up at big times. He led the team in tackles against Michigan. He had his first pass breakup in the must-win against Rutgers. So, like, he got early exposure that I think could help. He could end up being a good depth piece. Never thought it'd be there. So I think that will help in the long run.
Yeah, that experience is going to be crucial.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, last season, yeah, it's tough when, you're kind of, Jacorian Bennett was playing through, the broken fingers. Obviously, Deontay Banks went down pretty early. And then, you kind of lean on Corey Coley to step up. And, when we kind of talk about, the depth to kick off this unit, we talk about Perry Fisher, Lionel Whitaker, Chance Harley, guys that, a little bit inexperienced, at the college level. But, if they're forced to play early, obviously, you trust Henry Baker because he's a guy that is very technical and he hones in on, details and technique with his cornerbacks. And you kind of see it during the open portion of practices. That's just kind of been who he is since he got to Maryland. But at the end of the day, if those guys all play now, you look at this room 2-3 years from now, obviously, portal can all change and, bring in guys to help fill the, starting roles and things like that. But that's exactly what helps build the level of talent in the room. So I think Corey Coley is a guy, even though he was thrusted and asked to grow up pretty quickly, I think he's a guy that is kind of a spitting image of, exactly what you want, guys that see the early playing time and, down the line, they're able to provide that quality depth. So I think it's very safe bet that you see Corey Coley in the 2 deep this year and quite frequently on the field.
Yeah, Chance Harley is one of those guys that I just forgot about. Like, it was one of those transfer portal hits that kind of was like under the radar in the complete dead period where nothing was really going on. I was actually doing the countdown when I came across him and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's an option, because when we lost Kenny Bennett and I was looking at the spring game and I was like, all right, well, Levante Gator looks better than he's ever looked. And like the next day, Gator's like, yeah, I'm out of town. So like the cornerback depth in my head was like a real problem. I mean, I know we've talked all the time, like, Ahmed, where are they getting me another corner? And I just kind of forgot this guy happened. I mean, he brings good credit with him. 6'1", 195 out of Villanova. At the Landon School, he was all conference. First team all conference and a lacrosse star, which always screams complete athlete. Which is always good to see.
See that with Jared Barnhart in the NFL right now. It's great.
Ridiculous athlete.
Yeah.
One guy I did want to bring up and just get your take on is a guy that I was kind of high on coming out of high school at Spalding. Jayon Venerable hasn't played a whole lot since his time here with the Terps, but he was a stud at Spalding. I saw a video recently. I think it might have been Ty Felton picking on him a little bit. I thought that was kind of funny. But
Deontay Banks.
Oh, it's Deontay Banks. That's who it was.
Yeah.
I saw that.
What's your take on Venerable? Do you think he gets into the rotation at all this year?
Yeah, I think he's a guy. I think he could play safety, but I also think he could kind of fill that role into a nickel nickel DB as well. I think just his frame and his tendencies. Yeah, he does a good job breaking on the ball. So that's kind of where I see, him potentially playing that role. Just, remains to be seen, how efficient that he can be in man coverage. But I think that he's a guy that maybe a year away from like significant playing time, significant role. But he was I believe the first commit in that 2021 class. So yeah, he did a good job, kind of just breaking it. Not 2020 class. So I think he did a good job of kind of developing. So we'll see. I think it's a possibility that we kind of see him on the field this year.
Well, I'm going to put your feet to the fire a little bit with this group, right? Because obviously the talent level with Bennett, Banks, and Still is elite. Do you think that they're up there in the top 3 to top 5 in the Big Ten as far as the trio of corners if they're healthy?
I would say top half. I don't know if I'd say top 3, but I think they have the potential to be. At the end of the day, it's going to be all about returning the pass breakups into interceptions. I mean, I would think it was the Indiana game last year when again, Ja'Cory Bennett was dealing with broken fingers, but that ball went straight through his hands and right to the opponent team, Indiana wide receiver, and I don't think they got a touchdown out of it, but I know they got a big play out of it. But that I think that's kind of the next step for these guys to cement themselves as among the best in the Big Ten.
I think it's an impossible question because how do you even measure just your top 3 corners versus the other top 3 corners? Because it's a position where you don't just play 3 dudes. Like there's plenty of plays where there's 5 corners out there playing. So if they pick on your number 4 and 5 and your pass defense is terrible because the 4th and 5th guy couldn't hack it, it's going to be really hard to say. I do think that out of this group, you're going to have at least one, probably 2 second team cornerbacks in the Big Ten, like second team all Big Ten type deal.
Good for me. I like it.
But I just think that they could spread the ball out on us, and we might not see the overall team stats to back it up. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope we got a bunch of studs. There's plenty of people in here that have some ball hawking history in high school and over the years. So hey, high risk, high reward seems to be what the offense has been over the years. Let's get our hands on some balls on defense and make this work.
I was just going to add, 1 point on Chance Hartley. I think that's a guy. So he got added to the roster the day before camp started, and he's the son of Charlie Harrison, back end addition to the staff, and he filled the role that Henry Frazier once had. He left the program, and his Chance dad, Charlie, is the new director of character and leadership development. And so that was kind of how that whole transfer happened, and kind of helped add some depth. And obviously, it wasn't like we hired your dad so we can get your transfer DB. It just kind of all worked out that way. So I think, I think that's another guy that he'll be leaned on. But yeah, like you said, just playing multiple players, that's a guy that's going to see the field a lot. Corey Coley, Lionel Whitaker. So we'll see. I mean, Lionel Whitaker was a guy that they liked a lot as well. So it'll be interesting.
I think he had like 5 interceptions was in his senior year or something. Big ball hawk, and the all hair team, best hairdo on the team.
That is facts. Let's move to the last line of defense, being the safeties, right? Because that's probably the biggest question mark. Because obviously you lost immense talent. I mean, you lost Nick Cross and Jordan Mosley, both very talented safeties. So they're big shoes to fill. Bo Braid, Trader. Do you think these guys are up for the task?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Trader is a guy that he's kind of been able to draw some consistent praise. And I think the only question that I had coming into the off season is, I know he got a chance to play a ton last year, 12 games. So I think that, he's flashed the range, he's flashed the speed and the instincts. And he's, I don't want to say he's soft-spoken leader, but like he's kind of emerged as that young voice for the safety room. But I think it was kind of interesting. Isaiah Hazel was a guy that I thought, had a chance to, be that, as the veteran, the early leader. But, I think Trader's kind of quietly, taking that job as his own through fall camp. So I think, I think Trader kind of fits perfectly as a free safety, and then Bo Braid, I think he's a guy that he can even come in the box and kind of generate pressure that way. I think he's really good tackler, and has we're probably going to see some big hits out of him, probably this year, if not, for the rest of his Maryland career. I think he's a guy that is definitely going to turn some heads. So we'll see. It's a young tandem, so it'll be interesting to watch.
I hope so, because Ahmed's been saying Bo Braid's name for a long time,
He has.
even before Nick Cross left. But in my head, Nick Cross is a man to replace, because I don't think we ever got to see what Nick Cross truly could or was in this defense, because he constantly had to play out of position to cover injuries elsewhere. He had to play in a spot in man coverage in places that I don't think he's going to do in the NFL.
But that's a strength to Nick Cross, is his ability to play in the box. He can line up as a free. He can play all over the field. That's a benefit to him.
100%. I think that Nick Cross is going to be one of those Terps that takes a ridiculous jump in the NFL. He's going to look better in the league than he did in college, is my thought process, because hopefully he'll be in a spot where he gets to play to his strengths and not what we need from you today. Right. So I think that Nick Cross is awfully hard to replace. I hope they can both be Jordan Mosley level, and we would still be okay.
Well, you mentioned Dante Trader and Bo Braid. Obviously, they're the front runners to be the front two. In passing, you kind of mentioned Isaiah Hazel's name in the mix. Does he look to be that third rotation guy? This is a guy that was a big get for Loxley, but as a wide receiver, and you do see a lot of wide receivers transition to defensive back and vice versa. Worked out pretty well for Diggs' brother in the NFL Trayvon. Now with their Trayvon with Dallas. Do you think Isaiah Hazel's got a chance of being in that 3-man rotation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, again, like what we talked about, he's a guy that, his fourth year. I mean, he's seen a lot of playing time, and you can't discount that, especially come Big Ten play. So yeah, I expect Maryland fans to kind of see him, and inside linebackers, obviously defensive rotations and whatnot. That's a mainstay, but we've kind of watched that inside linebacker unit, and then on the back end, some rotations, and obviously even with Nick Cross last year, just to try and keep guys fresh. So yeah, I expect that Isaiah Hazel definitely has a role, and he made that move as a wide receiver to safety, and there was talk out of high school that maybe defense is kind of the best spot for him, for pro potential. But he made that move, kind of approached Loxley and said, hey, there's a bunch of guys in front of me right now. I want to see the field earlier. So that was kind of what helped facilitate that move to defense.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Hazel is just going to be that, athlete. I mean, that's what he is. He came over the flip from WVU as a wide receiver. We don't know if he's going to play backup corner, if he's going to be a starting corner. Is he going to play backup safety? I think realistically, he's going to be that number 2 kind of all the way across the board. Somebody that can just fill in, keep these guys fresh, move along. But my biggest question is also, when are we going to see some of these younger guys, some of these depth pieces? How are they going to use this, 4-game session that we've had? When are we going to see our freshmen, Ahmed?
Yeah, I think, that's another fair question. I think Gavin Gibson was a guy that he tested very well in the spring, among the fastest DBs that, were healthy, or fastest players on the team of the guys that were healthy. So I think he when you watch look at the transformation picks, he was a guy that, he looked noticeably different. And then obviously Levain Scruggs, he enrolled in June.
Lots more tattoos. I remember that.
Yeah. yeah. But, and it was a debate whether it was a sleeve tattoo. I remember that.
He just put some clouds on his arm.
Yeah. But I think, again, Loxley's pretty strategic with getting those guys, maximizing their 4 games while maintaining a red shirt. Do both of those guys, do they see the red shirt? It's a possibility, but we'll see. I think it's possible that, between one of these guys, or 2 of these guys, one of them will probably play more than 4 games. I'd lean toward Gibson just because he's got here earlier. I think Scruggs, I think he kind of fill in, behind Bo Braid there, but we'll see. I think it'll be kind of intriguing.
I think they'll probably both play 2 out of the first 3. Probably one of them will play
That's
Buffalo
fair.
and Charlotte, and one of them will play Buffalo and SMU, and then just kind of gauge how the rest of the season goes, and see where we need them, and if they're going to burn the red shirt, how much more they'll have to play. But I think that'll get them a good look at what they have out of these two guys, if they can split it up that way with a little bit better athletes in those Charlotte and SMU games to test them against and see where we're at, is probably how I would see it playing out.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like, listen, I understand that there's a lot of question marks on this part of the defense specifically because, like you said, there's just not a ton of depth there, and you gotta keep these guys healthy. But the core group of what we have, the starters that we know that are going to be out there day in, day out, I feel like this has the potential to be a very good group if everybody stays healthy. So that's going to be the key to this year, and it's key every year.
Terps.
Got to stay healthy. So hopefully we can do that.
Before we go any further, we want to take a second to highlight Nilwire. Nilwire is a fan-first NFT marketplace created by a couple of brothers whom are also former athletes to help connect fans and athletes together. Their mission is to help athletes monetize their name, image, and likeness utilizing blockchain technology and bringing value to their fans. With Maryland defensive lineman Mo Kite and Ami Finau partnering with this fast-growing company, their vision is to help athletes beyond sports and provide them a network with fans on another level. Be on the lookout for the Ballers Series 1 NFT collection, which will be launching on the Nilwire marketplace this month. Make sure to sign up for pre-sale on nilwire.io to get early access to the athletes' NFTs and support the players. That's nilwire.io.
I got to be honest, I wasn't a big NFT guy for a while, but now that I know a couple of Maryland guys are involved with it, I'm going to support it. I need to check it out. Listen, if Gary V's behind NFTs, then I'm going to be behind NFTs.
Yeah, and Turtle NIL, the Maryland basketball NIL collective, they're also utilizing NFTs as well for they did it last season with Fats, Dante Scott, Eric Ayala. So it's an intriguing space.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the Twitter live space when NIL or Nilwire here was first launching. They had all their athletes with them. I think there were actually 3 players on the Terps during that live Twitter space, and they all seemed pretty excited about it. And there were also combinations where, for the guys that aren't really sure of the NFTs, there were a lot of discussion about this first launch where, yeah, it's an NFT, which is like a picture with, code behind it saying it's yours. But there was also physical items that came with some of these purchases, and, whether it be memorabilia or just interactions with players, things like that are more tangible for people that just don't get the NFT world. Still check it out because they had some cool stuff talking about it that way.
That was me. I was one of those guys. That was one of my old man moments when I finally realized, this is my first old man, technology thing that I just don't get. In the beginning, I just didn't understand it. But now I think it's really cool. And obviously it's the new way of the future, man, and the way of collecting things and displaying things and having ownership of something in a digital world. So Make sure you get out there to nilwire.io and check it out today.
Well, we're talking about a couple of stud players out here for the Terps, and Ahmed had a chance of asking Loxley about who he thought the front runner, the top weapons, the leaders on the team were going to be. And we're going to check that clip out now.
Roughly having that first week at pad so far. I know before fall camp, you kind of mentioned, this is kind of the time where you find, your playmakers, your leaders, things like that. Anyone kind of been able to fill those shoes early on?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a bunch of guys that make some plays in practices and games. The guys that have been around here and done good things have still been consistent in the receiver room, the running back room, our DBs, the front 7. So it's really hard right now to just throw out some names. If I were to throw out a name, I'd say it starts with Chad Ryland, our kicker. I haven't talked a lot about that, but probably one of the best pickups we've had out of the transfer portal. Another weapon. Scoring the ball is really important, and he came back from his off-season training and has been killing the ball. And I'm really, really excited about having that consistency from that position. So if I had to give somebody a little love about, the guys that really have stood out to me, it's Chad Ryland, and his confidence is at all-time high. He's kicking the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs. He's been very accurate on his field goals throughout camp, and I really expect him to have a big year for us.
We're talking about kickers?
Did I hear that right? We're talking about kicker, all the names.
Leaders and weapons.
A kicker, right? I mean, how much... how frustrating was the special teams unit last year as a whole, and how many games did we
all the way
there?
until Virginia Tech game?
All the way until Virginia Tech.
I
gave them that good juju, and then they started off with a return for a touchdown. That was great. But I mean, to hear that, it's a big, big boost over where we were last year. I mean, Petrino, he started off hot as younger, and then it seemed like his career kind of tailed off a little bit as he got older. I don't know if the pressure just got to him or what happened over his career. But to get a guy in here like Chad Ryland's one of the best, incoming transfers for this class, I think is big for this team. It's going to be big for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I got a chance to talk to Ryland actually, and a couple of times now. Before he transferred, after he transferred, and at that big Maryland media day, excuse me. And I asked him because I saw a clip where he nailed a 65-yard field goal. I believe it was at Coles. Yeah, and I was like, "Is that your career long?" He's like, no, I hit a 75, and I had the wind in my back, and I was just like, dude, 65 or 75, like. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why. I mean, granted, after first scrimmage, that's kind of it was the first couple of days in full pads. We were reported the Friday before, they were in pads and they were in partial pads. Last Tuesday they were in full pads, and then that after that first scrimmage, that was again, a handful of days where Moxie was able to see that. But I think Ryland, I think he's one of the best kickers in the country. It was actually Logan DeLizio, my guy on the site. He got a chance to talk to an anonymous portal kicker that Maryland was looking at before Ryland came, and he was like, "Yeah, I like that." He was saying, it's like Ryland, he's one of the best guys, best kickers in college football. So, I think when you look back, especially at conference play last year, there were a lot of opportunities, where Maryland maybe was not in the red zone, but they were close to it. And, you get a chance to add an easy three, and, that stuff kind of helps a lot. And obviously not just from a score perspective, but from momentum perspective. So I think just adding a guy like Ryland, one, to be able to have that confidence in him. And then obviously two, to extend that, that 35-yard line range that Petrino had a season ago. I think that kind of just amplifies what Maryland's efficiency can be on offense this year.
Yeah. I spent a good hour looking for the clip because last year Locks had that press conference where he was like, "We have our number where we're confident to bring out the kicker." They went for fourth down. I couldn't find it, but it was basically we're not going to tell you what the number is, but there's a number, and if we don't reach that number, we're not kicking a field goal.
Yeah,
right.
And so it's like to think about that press conference where everybody's like, "What the hell do you kick a field goal for?" Versus, we have the best kicker in the league. We're going to kick it whenever we want 3 points.
Exactly. I mean, you think about all the struggles we talked about, how efficient the team was and how effective they were between the 20s. Once they got down inside the 20s, that's where things tend to stall. But you still didn't seem like they had a whole lot of faith in the kicking game there. So to have a guy like that in your back pocket that you do have that faith in, that you do have that confidence in, it's just going to help this team all around.
I hope he just goes 75 for 75 on extra points. But if we need a field goal, great. Let's get 3 instead of 0. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And you and I, Ryan, were at the Ravens preseason game for a couple of reasons. One, football's back. Two, it was $3 for you to go or whatever it was.
$10 ticket.
So you got to bring the whole family.
Yeah, I can bring 5-year-old girls and not feel like an idiot. Yeah.
Right. 3, there were a couple of former Terps there. You had Chig Okonkwo, Chance Campbell, and Sam O all playing for the Titans, so it was cool to see them come back.
We saw a lot of Chance and Chig, a little bit of Sam O, but a lot of the other two.
For sure.
I heard this past week that it sounds like Chance is probably going to make the Titans roster. It sounds like don't know what he sees on defense, but very likely on special teams. So
yeah, he played on every special team, so I'm not shocked to hear that.
Yeah. Both of them look like they're doing pretty well there, going through the rookie bumps and stuff like that. But either way, I think both of them are going to be a big part of what that Titans team's doing this year. But another key moment to that Ravens preseason game is kind of become an annual tradition at this point. Mike Loxley and crew was there to announce a scholarship, 2 scholarships. Kind of cool how he did it.
Yeah, it was really cool how he did it. Again, another clip that I tried to pull, but dang, that audio was terrible. But he announced a scholarship, and he went with our punter Colton Spangler as the first announcement. And as everyone was celebrating with Colton, Locks let it sit a little bit, and then said, "And we're lucky enough to have 2 punters. I'm putting Anthony Peccarello on scholarship," which was really cool. And then when you heard the audio later, because I didn't catch this in the stadium, Locks is going over to Ant going, And you was big mad. You were real mad. Like it's just really cool to see the relationship those two have. Like it's clearly like this like almost brother like poke fun and like get under each other's skin. Like they seem like you can't detach the two. Like any picture of Mike Loxley has Anthony Pecorella in it. It's where's Waldo in this photo?
Ant's one of those guys that just demands like a conversation, demands attention. Like that's just who he is. It's his personality. He's very vocal guy, fun-loving guy, man. There's a lot to like about Anthony Pecorella. So it was really cool to see not only him, but Colton Spangler both go on scholarship in that game. It was really cool.
Yeah.
You was big mad, Ant. Big mad.
Was. But another big question around this special teams unit, because obviously both of those guys, Pecorella and Spangler, are coming back. So we're good there with our punting group.
Yep, you got a dude with a monster leg and a dude that can pin corners, and that's why we got two of them.
Exactly. But the big question mark is who's going to be returning kicks? And we've been frustrated over the last year or two seeing stud wide receivers back returning kicks. Some of them ended up getting hurt, going out for the year. We're not going to mention any names. But we've got a pretty good group of guys that don't look like it's going to be the number ones back there. I mean, Terps could factor into the mix, but I'd rather see him in bubble wrap on the sideline for kick returns. But they've got a couple of guys they can pick from to return kicks.
I mean, I think Terps still. I mean, he's kind of been the primary punt returner his first 2 years. So I expect him to kind of be that third guy. And then again, my guy Logan Delizio, he heard a couple names: Ty Felton, Deontay Banks, Octavian Smith, Roman Hemby. And I think when you kind of look at all those names, all those guys kind of fit the same mold. I think Ty would be the biggest guy in terms of his frame, but all those guys, they're shifty, they're very great top end speed, especially Roman Hemby, Octavian Smith. And if you're a subscriber on Inside the Black and Gold, I've raved about Octavian Smith more than once this offseason, and I think it's really lived up. I think he might be the underclassman that kind of surprises some folks this fall. But again, all those guys have great speed, great in the open field, so not a complete surprise that you see all those guys kind of rotating in.
Octavian, a guy that they would risk potentially burning the red shirt for.
Yeah. I think it and again, that wide receiver room just has so many guys, but I think Octavian Smith, I think he's making a pretty strong case so far this year. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe he ultimately does. At the end of the day, again, like I said, there's so much top end talent in that room. So I just think Octavian, he's kind of been as advertised, and I think even I've kind of been open about the fact with Brown's cornerback depth concerns. Does Octavian, who everyone said he can be a really good wide receiver, but he has NFL potential at corner. And I kind of thought it seemed like it was inevitable to move him to corner, but he's going to stay at wide receiver. But yeah, I mean, I think it's possible that Maryland fans see him for more than 4 games this year. So he's going to be he's a fun guy to watch, and he's a even easier guy to root for once you get to know him more.
Yeah, I was just looking at the heights on these guys because in my head, Octavian Smith just sounded too long just from my high school highlights I was watching. But both him and Ty are 6'1", so I'm not completely against that. It's probably on the high end of the guys that I want returning kicks. I want no 6'3", 6'4" lanky bodies out there getting laid up anymore. That's not who's supposed to be there. But yeah, I don't hate any of these names. There's a ton of speed, ton of youth and talent. Terps still, I think, more just punt return. I don't really think should be out there on kick returns. It's great to have your starting corner available in case they do something dumb on a punt team. That's always great to have them out there. But there's a lot better options here than we saw last year.
Yeah,
in my starting opinion here.
my gut is at kick returner we see Banks and Hemby. I think that's my gut. And if it's not Banks, it's going to be Octavian. But I don't want that to come across as me dismissing Ty, because I think Ty is. I've heard he's done really good both at wide receiver, and I think he's kind of flashed a little bit.
He's electric, man.
Especially at kick return. So I think he has a chance. But I think just Banks and Hemby has the top end speed that we've heard it coming out of high school and then through last year, and then obviously he redshirted last year, but he's going to play a big role in that running back room. And I think maybe you have all these guys because the running backs they're kind of leaning on multiple younger guys. Do you keep them fresh, things like that? So I think it'll be kind of interesting to see what ends up getting finalized. But like you guys said, there's multiple guys that can kind of fill that role. But I think just Banks and Hemby. I mean, Banks did it even in the spring. So and Banks, I think, had kick return touchdowns in both scrimmages, if not at least one. So all these guys are more than capable.
So I don't expect to see Rack on punt return at all, but are you telling me Rack's off the kick return now too?
That's what we're hearing. So so we'll
That
see.
makes
I
me
mean,
feel
he's
better.
and he's another guy that he fits
He
that
showed it
mold
last
better.
year. We've showed it.
Yeah.
NFL, if you want it, that's what I did. We don't need to
Yeah.
do it anymore.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Exactly. That's not my issue. My issue isn't that the fact that these guys can't do it. It's that I don't want them doing it because it's just too risky to have some of these guys out there doing it, especially when you have some of the depth at wide receiver and running back, and you've got electric speed with these guys that aren't getting a whole lot of playing time. Let them have these specialty roles. Let them kind of find their niche and their impact on this team. And I think Felton, Banks, Octavian Smith, even Hemby, all those guys could fill in very nice in that role, I think.
Great.
Personally. All right, guys, let's take a trip around recruiting. Talk a little recruits, because I know last week there was some big news around the basketball team. His new IMG 4-star guard forward Jamie Kaiser committed to Maryland this week. Tell us a little bit about Jamie and what he brings to the Terps.
Yeah, he committed in early August. I think it was the first weekend of August. I think he was a guy. I mean, he's been arguably the biggest fast riser in the country. Just what he's able to do around the rim. I think he's been able to take a lot of strides as a shooter. But then obviously, just with his physicality, obviously his football background as well. He does a really good job of finishing around the rim and absorbing contact. And I think that's kind of just the high ceiling that he brings. And he's a guy, just through the summer. I mean, I heard it multiple times. He was a guy that would kind of alter plans because he just wants to work out a lot. And obviously, coming out of his junior year, I heard he had about 13, 14 different schools that were kind of in the running for where he's going to play for his senior year. And then he landed at IMG, and obviously IMG's facilities play a big part in that. But I think with Jamie, after Jonathan Lamoth, he committed out of St. Francis. Jamie was kind of that next big domino, and it was probably going to happen in end of July, or excuse me, end of June, early July. And then obviously, you had new interest that came in. I knew Auburn, Oregon, UCLA was another school. UNC was kind of sniffing a little bit, but kudos to Willard to kind of locking
Big
down
dogs
this guy.
we chased off our yard. Big dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. And I mentioned it before, but he was a football guy first. Well, he always played football and basketball, but he was a football prospect first, and Maryland was that first Power 5. And he even said it himself during this summer. But he said if he opted for football, he was going to commit to Maryland as a quarterback. So it's kind of interesting to see that when you think the whole thing, how everything kind of played out. He ended up being a Terp in the end, but once he came back from that Indiana trip, and Auburn was starting to reach out as well, and Maryland was kind of saying, hey, we got to figure out where we stand before you make that move down to IMG, which should be happening this upcoming week, next few days, where he makes that move down to IMG. But he got a chance to go back to an unofficial. Him and his dad came up, got a chance to watch film for a couple of hours, and that has sealed it. And then he announced it was a Thursday visit. He announced it that Sunday. So like I said, kudos to Willard, because they've got some momentum on the trail now.
Yeah, man, definitely kudos to Willard. This is a guy that I'd heard his name, but I hadn't really paid a whole lot of attention to him until there was seriousness that Maryland could potentially land this guy. So I started just watching some clips and stuff, and I'll show my age here, but when I first saw him physically, I didn't know I figured he had a football background just because of his size. I didn't know he was a quarterback, but I actually his size and his build reminds me of Tony Gonzalez back in the day when Tony Gonzalez was playing college basketball. He was built very similar. Obviously, he went on to have a Hall of Fame career as a tight end in the NFL, but he had a very physical, man-built body in high school, and then as a freshman in college, I think that's what this guy brings, and that's exciting because that's what this team needs down low for sure. Is they need some strength and somebody that can actually muscle guys around.
Yeah, and I think he kind of has that versatility. I think he can play. He's kind of listed as I think guard and forward on some recruiting services, and I think he kind of is interchangeable to 2 or 3. So that's also pretty nice for Maryland.
And how old were you watching Tony Gonzalez and play college basketball?
I was young. It was a long, many moons ago.
I remember those clips from his Hall of Fame speech, I think.
Oh, man. Well, any other names out there that Terps fans should be keeping an eye on, or any buzz?
Yeah, Paul the Six, 4-star shooting guard Deshaun Harris-Smith was told this week that he should be announcing by the end of August. Doesn't sound like anything in terms of commitment ceremony, commitment timeline, commitment date. Any of that is kind of finalized just yet. Deshaun Harris-Smith is a very reserved guy, but was told a commitment video is kind of that's going to be the ultimate route. I believe he has started, if not is starting soon. Just filming that, doing like small clips, things like that, but. So we'll see. I think there could be some updates this weekend. I think we maybe get some more clarity kind of on where his head's at. And but right now, Maryland's been doing a good job at seemingly right after Jamie Kaiser went public with his pledge. Jamie Kaiser and Deshaun Harris-Smith, those are two guys that are very close friends. They used to play on the PYBL team back in.
I thought they played together. Okay.
Yeah. Then but way back, and those guys. It's not. I was told it's not pressure, but it's just more, Jamie saying like, hey, you should come to Maryland and here's why, and just kind of, like friends, like genuinely recruiting each other. So I think that definitely helps. And I think Maryland's kind of the clear team to beat right now. And it's all about just kind of closing out.
Ahmed. I hear you. I'm reading between the lines. We might have some updates this weekend. You have to be a paid subscriber to Inside the Black and Gold to get any more information. I got you. Guys, you just go to InsideTheBlackandGold.com. And just, be a paid subscriber, and you'll know everything when you need to know it. That's what we're trying to tell you here.
We'll see kind of what comes out of this weekend. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been like, this is the most excited I've been about Maryland basketball in a long time. So I think that's just a good sign of optimism going into the season.
It seems exciting. I can't get past this football season right now, though. I got to ride this high while we have it. It's always works. We got to enjoy these first 4 to 5 weeks. This is what we have as Terps fans. All right, you got to enjoy this beginning of the season, people.
Yeah. And then I guess just like one other guy for basketball, Maryland made the top 5 for Putnam Science, 4-star forward Mohamed Diabute. He was slated to announce his visit schedule on Friday. That did not end up happening, but with Maryland being in that top 5, it's pretty clear that Maryland will get an official there. So where they kind of stand amongst that top 5 is kind of murky right now. But he's another guy that obviously Maryland also made the top 11 for 4-star South Kent guard Marco Jackson. But top 11 going into
a lot of schools.
Exactly. So I think that was, and I've kind of wrote about it a couple times this summer. He unofficially visited over the summer. I think a couple people on social media are saying he officially visited. That was not the case. He has all 5 official visits left. So I think there's kind of a lot to figure out for Marco. So we'll kind of see what happens. But again, Maryland has John Lamoth, Jamie Kaiser, and then if they do land Deshaun Harris-Smith, like I expect them to right now. Again, it's not 100% finalized. Maryland has to close that out. But if they do get him, that'd be 3 guards, and then are you getting a Marco Jackson? I mean, just logistically, it doesn't make sense with all these guys, especially 4 stars, getting early playing time options other schools more readily. So we'll see. But again, Mohamed Diabute would be that 4-star wing player for Maryland in this projected 5-man class.
Well, like you said, man, kudos to Kevin Willard. He hasn't wasted any time getting his feet to the pavement and making a dent out in the local area specifically.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see. It's I think right now exceeding expectations, at least for me in year 1.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, especially with local recruiting. I think that's kind of been the biggest draw. I mean, Deshaun Harris-Smith, if he commits, he'd be the 4th high school local signing. 4th local. Yeah, I butchered that twice. But both of those guys, like I said, just being able to lock down the top talent in the DMV, I think that's just refreshing for a lot of Maryland fans. So, Willard knew that he needed to do that, and that was a pain point for Maryland fans going into the coaching transition into the Willard era.
Yeah, 2 very exciting teams here at Maryland, and Loxley's got a job to do. We got 9 games to win this season. Let's go. And while he's doing that, he's got another job. We have to lock down our next year's recruiting class. So what we got going with the football side of things, Ahmed?
Yeah, Churchill wide receiver Zeke Abbott, who's actually a two sport athlete on the basketball side as well. He's kind of told me a couple times, it was going to be maybe an early fall or end of summer commitment, but he'll be announcing his commitment at the end of the month, and Maryland's in a good spot with him. Good counsel. Outside linebacker Dylan Gooden was slated to announce on August 9th. He ended up postponing that decision, and his last visit was on July 30th for Maryland's invite-only barbecue. So Maryland's gradually becoming a bigger player in his recruitment, and Carroll 5-star Nick Harbor.
That's the name.
Yeah,
we need those 9 wins to convince him.
There it is. I was hoping you were going to bring him up.
100%, man. He might end up rescheduling his official visit to LSU. He'll also officially visit South Carolina in mid-September. South Carolina is definitely a school to watch with him. He's
Where the fuck did these guys come from? I'm so done with South Carolina. I just don't even remember this being a thing.
So I went to, and to kind of sidetrack a little bit, but I went to the Spalding DeMatha scrimmage on Friday night, and I was talking with someone, actually a subscriber on Inside the Black and Gold, and kind of talking about South Carolina. And I had some of my friends that went to South Carolina out of high school, and there's a heavier DMV presence at South Carolina than you initially expected. And I think just kind of with how everything went out with Jayshon Barham last year, I think they're kind of also making the DMV a little bit of an emphasis this cycle. I think it's kind of interesting. They're a hot school.
We kicked a hornet's nest. Is that what you're telling me?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Or South Carolina style. We put our hand in the fire ant nest.
I think at the end of the day, South Carolina realized, that the relationships that Maryland had with Jayshon Barham and whatnot, that kind of, Maryland was able to turn the tide heavier than South Carolina could. But South Carolina is doing a good job with Nick Harbor. LSU is also a prominent contender. Michigan's still in there, and Maryland, that official, not finalized, not scheduled or anything like that, but should be the first weekend of December. That's kind of been the target. And when I asked Harbor, he kind of said the same as well. So, those December officials for Maryland, especially for local guys, you can never rule them out. So we'll see. It's going to take a lot. Maryland lost a lot. Caleb Dean on the track and field team this past month. So that's a big loss when you look at Maryland prioritizing and emphasizing the track and field program, which is so prominent for Nick Harbor. So we'll see. Lot to figure out. But one caveat that I want to mention with him is that a lot of the visits that he took, USC visit back in early summer, I believe, he was out west for track and field, and the South Carolina visit that he took in July after the dead period, he was not too far away because of a track meet. So he's just now starting to really focus in on football. So that's why, he was actually supposed to officially visit South Carolina back in June. So this was a reschedule. So I think that there's a lot that he still needs to figure out in terms of, what he wants, side of the ball. I mean, he still doesn't have a true preference. So it's going to be a hectic couple months. He'll sign in December. He will not enroll early. So we shall see.
Nick, UMD or LSU, don't hurt me. Don't do any of this other garbage.
I just LSU. I mean, they are a contender for him. But do I really see him playing under Brian Kelly? I don't.
He's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean,
him and his fake Southern accent. Go out there, Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I like they're doing a good job recruiting him. I don't know if in my mind right now, based on everything I've heard, if I really see that being a realistic landing spot. I know it's going to piss off some Maryland fans. I think it's South Carolina. It's more likely if he goes SEC than LSU right now. I mean, there could be new schools that emerge.
Just as fake to me. I just don't get it. If you're prioritizing somebody that's a real genuine coach when you're saying Brian Kelly's out, it's kind of how I read that. Is Brian Kelly's probably the fakest coach you can think of. This South Carolina guy is the same thing. He's out there doing TikTok dances and putting on the dresses.
Shane Beamer.
Shane. I don't. That's not you. Go back 3 years ago. That wasn't your personality. No. This is what you're putting on for the 18-year-olds. Loxley is Loxley on off the field in his bar with his boys. my neighbor up here that hangs out with him in Vegas. Loxley's Loxley. That's who he is.
So
That's
my only counterpoint is, and I do agree with that, but South Carolina, their game day, their tailgate atmosphere is a good time.
Oh,
Their
it's a
downtown
good time.
area
Absolutely. I got
is
family
really
right
good.
down there.
Yeah, I mean,
they win that. I'm not going to lie to you.
And
But if
I
you're
even
playing,
remember,
you're not participating in that.
no, 100%. But like that, those are the things that you kind of see.
When
and
you
that's,
go on the visit, that's what the hype is, man. That's
Yeah.
where all the excitement builds, is from the outside in, man. So it's
Yeah,
it's
so
all
you
about the
listeners
game
that
day
aren't coming to the
experience.
games on Saturdays are the
Exactly.
problem. Get your ass down there and come party with us.
and it's kind of it sounds stupid, and I 100% acknowledge it, and I definitely brought this up during the Tosin and Babalade recruitment down the stretch, but South Carolina fans do a really good job on social media, reaching out, making a kid feel wanted, and some recruits prioritize and pay attention to that more than others, but it's been consistent from their end. So if you're a Maryland fan and you feel like that's kind of something you're interested in, just saying, in the NIL era, you can tweet the hell out of recruits. So, Maryland, you look at, guys that have committed, the feedback, and then you look at any of the guys that have recently committed to South Carolina. It's not the same wavelength. So we'll see. Again, with Nick Harbor, there's going to be a lot, and I'm not saying that's a guy that's going to be focusing on who tweets on him at the end of the day, because he's going to be a guy that commands significant NIL. And I know some of the questions are going to be for Maryland fans, Maryland doesn't have NIL. What we can't compete, and that's, excuse my French, but that's just bullshit. Because
Look,
even Turtle NIL, when that was not finalized and that wasn't public, it wasn't eliminating the possibility for basketball players to get NIL opportunities. And when there were schools that were approaching Raheem Jarrett, I know Alabama has been kind of publicly linked to them already. There's been some other schools that kind of sniffed at him. We don't have a NIL collective football finalized just yet, but we're not completely inept. We take care of the guys. So we'll see.
hey, I'm hoping
We'll
that
see.
new director of NIL is just a shell corp. We're just going to pay him like $9 million a year, and he gets to spend 8.5 of it on kids.
Plot twist: the director of NIL is just an LLC set up in the Cayman Islands.
Yes, that's great.
Right.
That's exactly what I was hoping it was. And we're going to take a large percentage of our Big Ten TV payout and put it in that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So it'll be an interesting few months. So we shall see how it all unravels.
You guys mentioned Brian Kelly, and I had a squirrel moment. Did either one of you guys watch the Manti Te'o documentary?
I did, and I told myself I wasn't going to, and I told myself I just can't believe that he's actually doing this. And I respect Manti Te'o now. I feel bad for him now.
I
When
feel
you used
so
to be
bad
relevant
for
and
him,
now you're not
man.
relevant, you need to make a Netflix documentary. Clearly.
Yeah.
Like back then we just had no like concept of like catfishing and what it was, and we have all of us like social media, we all just jumped on him as like, what an idiot, this guy, like pretend girlfriend, all this thing, like, and we all blamed him, like somehow like he manifested this thing on his own and did it on his own right. And then when you listen to that documentary, you're like, oh my God, like everybody in the world owes this guy an apology. Like it's just awful.
Like I never felt that like Manti Te'o. I mean, I know some people were like, "Oh, did he do this all himself after his grandma passed?" And I never thought I felt that, but I definitely was like, "Wow, this guy is an idiot." Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt bad for him. So
I haven't watched it. I don't know if I want to, but everybody's watching, so I will.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's only 2
eye-opening.
episodes too, so it's
quick.
definitely worth your time.
Right. Ryan, I know you wanted to bring up a recent member that got announced to the Terps Hall of Fame as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of speaks to how old I am. So the Terps Hall of Fame representatives this year really hit into kind of the wheelhouse of my Terps fandom. These people were all very relevant when I was in high school. So like old enough to have fun, old enough to go down and do dumb stuff on campus, but still young enough that like these players were kind of gods to me. So of course we had some big names all the way across. Christy Tolliver winning the national championship for the women's team, all these guys. But Vernon Davis was the football representative here, and Vernon Davis is probably one of the biggest memories I have from Terps, from my Terps experience. So I'm gonna let Locks talk first, and then kind of touch on my memories of Vernon Davis here.
Yeah, he was part of a class that was probably one of the more higher ranked classes that Maryland has had, and I can remember. He's a guy that, much like Rakims and the Stephon Diggs. He was part of the forefather of the DMV movement of staying home, and could have went anywhere in the country and decided to stay right here at home and made used this platform to create a great career at the NFL and now even beyond with some of the things he's doing in his life after football. Comes from a great family, grandma, Miss Adeline, who, I've had the opportunity to get to know her very well, having recruited Vernon to Maryland, and obviously Vontae, his brother, to Illinois. Know the family very well. Was a guy, like I said, that came in, stayed home, showed that staying home, you still can reach the goals you want to reach by playing here at Maryland for the hometown team. And again, a great Terp.
Yeah, I mean, he was the dude of all dudes. Like
one of the most complete tight ends in Terp history, if not the most complete.
Yeah, and I mean, his NFL career backs up everything that he did here and in the Terps career too. I mean, I was drafting him far too early in fantasy drafts to make sure I had a stocked Terp.
Surprise!
Fred's gonna take all my money this year because he'll know when he'll get me to buy DJ Moore in the second round or something stupid. But yeah, I mean, I would sit there in section 7 and literally every time he touched the ball, I would just chant NFL. And that was just basically his name. I mean, and that was back in the day when our section was kicking it. So I would have the whole section kicking with me, NFL. So it was an awful lot of fun. If you needed 3 yards, hand it to him. You needed 6 yards, throw it to him. The man could do literally anything. Some of my fondest memories, multiple field rushes during his time. He's a great. Even though he's doing some weird stuff with his acting post football, I haven't seen a movie worthwhile yet. But hopefully someday he can transition from these B-rate movies to the rock Hollywood lifestyle that he's trying to represent there. But on the football field, man against boys, and some of my fondest memories as a Terp fan, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely a guy that, like I said, most complete tight end, and I followed his career through the NFL, his years with the 49ers. He was a very effective tight end, could have been used a little bit more, I think, in the offense, but man, he's just a great person, a great guy, and a great tight end. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. It's a wrap on this week's episode. Stay tuned. We got 2 more weeks before season kicks off. We'll probably get at least 1 more, if not 2 more shows out prior to the season kicking off. If you guys want to follow the show, make sure you're doing so on all of our social media accounts. You can follow the show on Twitter at ShellnTell Pod. You can follow Ryan at Terps B. Espert. Follow me at Fred BLBS. Follow Ahmed at Kafir the Turtle and at Inside Black and Gold. If you're not doing that by now, you're wasting your time. Get there, sign up, follow the account for all the latest scoops and updates on recruits. Ryan, sign us off.
All right, guys, well, get down to the stadium. Make memories of your own. I'm telling you, it's worthwhile. Bring your kids, bring your wife, bring anybody down here. It's a good-ass time. If you want to hang out with the ShellnTell boys, we're down there in lot 4B every Saturday before the game. And if you're not from here, we're probably coming close to you. We're headed down to Charlotte and out to Michigan, so come talk to your boys. Guys, we only got 14 days left, so it's more important than ever. We got to keep these boys safe, keep these boys healthy, and get into here with action. So here's to wishing all is well under the show.